day 2 and looking at some really neat tricks that you can use to find discounts and know what you're going to be paying for in the store when you're out shopping. Here's our first example. You want to buy $120 worth of snow gear, but there's an awesome deal going on, 50% off of the gear you're looking at buying. Now, 50% is the same thing as 0.5 if we're going to write it as a decimal. And we know 0.5 is the same thing as a half. So when you have to do 50%, you literally just need to cut the price in half, because 50% is half. Okay, so we take our $120 worth of snow gear and we cut that in half, divide it in two. 120 cut in half is 60 bucks. So we can expect to save $60. That's our discount. And what are we going to pay? Well, we'll have to pay the other half. $60 sale price. This is what you should expect to pay. That's a major deal. 50% off is a good sale to pay attention to if you're out shopping. Okay, so just cut the price in half. You need to buy a dresser for your room. You find one that you like that's $880, but it's marked 75% off. This is a major deal. Now, how are we going to work with 75% in our heads? Well, there's a couple of options. 75% I can break into 50% and 25%. 50 plus 25 is 75. Why is breaking it up like this make the problem easier? Well, 50%, we just did an example like that. When you're taking 50% of a price, you just cut it in half. What's half of 880? Half of 880 is 440. Okay, also 25 is half of 50. So if we want to find 25% of 880, we can just cut the half in half again. What's half of 440? That's 220. Add these two up, I get 660, and that is my discount. Major savings here. By buying this dresser now, while it's 75% off, you can expect to save yourself $660. So what are you going to be paying? Well, you take the original price minus the discount, and that means, doing some math here, 8 minus 6 is 2, you're going to be paying $220 for this dresser. That's quite a deal. Okay, there are other ways of dealing with 75%, kind of recognizing that 75% is the same thing as 0.75, which if you're thinking about quarters, that's 3 quarters out of the total 4 quarters. Okay, so you could always split this price into fourths and keep, or I guess take off, discount 3 of those 4 pieces. Okay, 880 split into 4 pieces is 220. So 220 is the price that I pay, and there are 3 other 220s. 3 times 220 is 660, which would be my discount. Okay, so 2 completely different ways of thinking about this problem. Recognizing that 75% is kind of like 3 quarters out of 4. So 3 out of 4 quarters will be discounted, and 1 out of 4 quarters is what you're going to have to pay. Or again, how we originally solved this, 75% can be broken into 15 and 25. So you cut the price in half, cut the price in half again, and those two totaled together are your discount. All right, here is a great real life example. You're going out to eat. You are buying a meal for two and it costs $79, and you wish to leave a 15% tip. So what's 15% of the total? How much are you going to have to pay? First of all, you are free to round $79 to $80 if you'd like. 80 might be a little bit easier to do math with. Okay. Now 15%, I can break that into a 10% and a 5%. Just like we broke the 75% down into 50% and 25%. Why does breaking it down into these two make the problem easier? Well, we know an awesome little trick for 10%. To find 10% of an amount, you just move the decimal in one space left. So 10% of $80 is $8. 5 is half of 10. So if we cut 8 in half, 8 cut in half is 4. I know that's going to represent 5%. 10 cut in half is 5. 8 cut in half is 4. So these two together will make our total discount. 10 and 5 together make 15%. 8 and 4 together make our total discount. Or sorry, I keep saying discount. We're doing a tip. This would be the tip you plan to leave the waiter or waitress. That is roughly, again, we're estimating 15% of our meal cost. So what are we going to need to pay? Well, you could, again, get an estimate and take 80 plus 12, which would be $92. Or if you want to be a little bit more exact, you could take the 79 plus 12, which would leave you a closer idea of what you want to leave for a total bill. Okay. So anytime you're at a restaurant and you want to leave a 15% tip, use the 10% rule, move that decimal in once, then cut whatever you get in half for 5%, add those two together, and that tells you what would be an appropriate tip to leave. Okay, last example. You're looking at a hydro flask, since those are so popular, and it's marked 25% off. How do we deal with 25%? Okay, there's a lot of ways you can deal with the 25% off. Option 1 would be to break 25 into 10, 10, and 5. Those would total to 25%. Now we know a really cool trick for the 10%. To find 10% of 32, remember you just move the decimal one space left, and that's your 10%. So that would be 3.2, and we need another 3.2, and then we have to half this to find 5%, remember, because 5 is half of 10. Half of 32 is 16, or 1.6. Okay, and add all these up. And I get $11 discount. So if the current price is $32 and I want to take off wait, I did my math wrong here. 6 plus 2 plus 2 is 10. This would be $8. $8 discount. There we go. So the total price is $32. Subtracting the $8 discount, leaves you with $24 dollars you're expected to pay. So that's one of the ways you can deal with 25% is to break it into these easier pieces. Particular 10% is one of the quickest tricks. Okay, here's another way to deal with that. Option number 2. 50% is easy to find because you just cut the price in half. Half the price. Half of 32 is $16. Okay, now if we cut 50% in half, that gives us the 25%. This is what we're trying to figure out. 50 cut in half is 25. 16 cut in half will give us our answer. Half of 16 is $8 discount. Okay, so a lot of people, when they see 25% off, they cut the price in half twice. Cutting the price in half the first time gives you 16 bucks. Cutting it in half a second time will give you an $8 discount. All right, a third way, not to overwhelm you, just to show you some options. 25% is the same thing as 0.25 written as a decimal, which is the same thing as a fourth written as a fraction. 25 cents is 1/4 out of the total 4. Basically, this means you can just divide your price by 4, and that will tell you your discount. So my price was originally 32 bucks. If I divide that by 4, 32 divided by 4 is $8 discount. Okay, so you can see we get that same $8 discount, $8 discount, $8 discount. In any scenario, it just depends which one you want to use. It's totally up to you. If you want to use the 10% rule a couple times, or you want to cut the price in half, then in half again, or you could recognize 25% is like dividing by 4. So just divide your price by 4. Again, on your homework today, the purpose of these lessons are for you to be able to figure out discounts and sale price mentally in your head without having to pull out a calculator or without having to carry around a paper and pencil while you're shopping. But even though you don't need to do work to figure out these problems, it should be mental. I do want to see some work just to know what's going on in your head. I'm curious to see which method you guys choose to figure out discount and sale price. So do show some work so I know what's going on in your head.